Hey, this is Robert Anthony, and this video is going to be the first of a three-part series that I'm going to discuss ways for you to save money while you're sending flowers out of town. But more importantly, I'm going to go over some things that I think the general public doesn't understand, and if they did, may alter the way that they're shopping. And so the first thing I'm going to address in this video, to try to keep them short so they're tolerable to watch, is I'm going to talk about FTD. I'm going to come over here to my board and I'm going to go FTD, and actually I'm going to put an A down here because that matters. So if you've ever wondered, what does FTD stand for? Because a lot of people will call and say, I want FTD flowers. FTD stands for Florist, TransWorld, Delivery. And then at the end here, you got to put association. Okay, Florist, TransWorld, Delivery Association. FTD was started many years ago by a group of florists. It was either in Chicago, Illinois, the Downers Grove area, or it was in the Dearborn area in Michigan. I can't really remember, or if they worked together. But the florists were frustrated because as people's families started to expand and they started to move across the country, people wanted to send flowers, and there was no universal way to send flowers around the country. So if you had somebody that lived in Lansing and their family lived in, say, Detroit, Michigan, they didn't have a way to send flowers back and forth for birthdays or anniversaries or sympathy or whatever. And so what a florist would do, it would call another florist, and the other florist would set up a house charge for that florist. Back before credit cards existed, they'd set up a house charge and they would bill the florist when the florist called them with an order to go to flowers for Aunt Sally's funeral. That florist then would, again, bill the florist that sent it. And the problem is that florists are inherently bad about paying their bills. The florist community, and this is nothing personal against my florist friends, but the florist community is a very artsy community, and artists typically have a difficult time managing their checkbook. There are two sides of the brain. There's the business side and the art side, the analytical side and the creative side. And the people who are great, who are wonderful designers, who are super creative, typically struggle with managing their finances. A lot of these flower shops were small entities, and so the owner did everything, paid the bills and everything else. Well, not having a good accounting package in place or an accounting structure, the cost of goods would get out of line, all kinds of bad things would happen. So they don't pay their bills, and that holds true even today. So what happened was a group of business-minded florists got together and said, we need to come up with a better solution. So they invented FTD. And FTD, or the Florist FTDA, was a group started by florists for florists, and it was the only one of its kind. It was the first to do this. And what it became was FTD became the clearinghouse. And again, it was either in Downers Grove, Illinois, or in Dearborn, Michigan was the main headquarters in the office. Basically, what a florist would do would be to apply to belong to FTD. And once they were a member of FTD, they had certain criteria that they had to meet. Look at it like a loose franchise agreement, only better, okay? Because there was no royalty fees and that kind of stuff. But to be a member of FTD, they were very regiment and strict with the guidelines that you had to uphold. The way your cooler was with regard to the product that was in it, it had to be full, your store had to be clean and vacuumed, little things. But what happened was if you had, over a period of years with good branding, if you had that gold and black circle in your window that had the FTD logo on it, the FTD insignia, people knew, very similar to the Gold Crown Hallmark store, which came much later, people knew that you were the best of the best as far as the florists were concerned, as far as the public was concerned. So you could be trusted. But then what then spawned off of that was the florist would send an order to go out of town. They would send it to the clearinghouse, which had the offices for FTDA. And then FTDA would then send that order, or the florist would pick a florist in the network. That would go through the clearinghouse, what was called a clearinghouse. Okay? They would send it through the clearinghouse, and the clearinghouse would handle all of the financial side of it. Not only would they bill members for their membership, but they would also handle all of the accounting back and forth. So if a florist didn't pay the clearinghouse bill for all the orders that they received to FTD, they were dropped from FTD because they were a bad pay. So this took care of a lot of problems with regard to the integrity of the transaction going back and forth. Now, what's important to note is this number right here, 20. 20% is the commission that a flower shop would pay the sending shop. So if flower shop A received an order from flower shop B, flower shop A agreed to spend 20 cents on the dollar or 20% to accept that order from the florist. So the sending florist would receive 20% and the filling florist would pay 20%. Now, it's important also to note this number, 7%. That's about the net profit that most flower shops can make if they're really running it tight. Industry says 10, you should be able to do 10. The real number, 7%. 7% net profit off of everything, off of your gross revenue. So you can see if you're giving 20% commission away, you're really losing money. And this is going to matter because we're going to talk about this later. But the 20% number here is the commission that you'd pay. So if you were a sending shop, you sent the order, you handled it for about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and if it's a $50 order, you made $10 for doing literally nothing. You have no investment, no product, no anything. And then from there, you would have the commission that you would receive, and you would have a service fee that you would collect from your customer to send the order. They were called telephone fees back then, and those would range from $2 to $3 and up. So for every order that you sent, you were really making a huge profit. For every order you received, you were having a substantial loss. But as my grandfather always taught me, as long as you send one order for at least every order you received, you're well making money. If you send 2 orders out for every order that you received, you're making a huge profit. So that's FTD. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more later about what happens years later as FTD continues to develop and continues to grow and continues to become the gold standard for the retail florist. If you like the video, I'd love it if you subscribe or share it with your friends, but this is going to be a very interesting series about how we've evolved as a flower business into having these giant entities that are taking orders from the public and sending them back to florists to fill them. It's a fascinating study into how it's evolved, at least to me. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you soon.